So you need to understand, why do you live for things like human rights? You seem like a compassionate guy, loving guy. Why? Why are you like that? And it's because you're swimming in the pond of Judeo-Christian values set by Jesus Christ. Very similar, they say. And then you got the atheists here on a Sunday morning saying, no, we're not going to do that. That's not being more of a free thinker, my friend. You can be a free thinker in each circle. Atheists are not just the free-thinking ones. I'm sorry. The majority of atheists, unfortunately, are very closed off in their thinking. They claim to be free thinkers, and I'm very open to the evidence, but the vast majority of them that we meet, and you've been doing it for 47 years, they are very closed off. And that's why I like the kid before you who was an atheist, and he was quite open, very open to different worldviews, and said, I don't know at the end of the day. And so I would urge you to have the same type of perspective. Just because there's some abuse in the church, just because there's some abuse in atheistic regimes, does not mean it's untrue. Just because Beethoven was such a fantastic musician, and I play Beethoven very poorly, I am not musically gifted, does not mean that that's a reflection on Beethoven himself. Beethoven is still a great musician.
I'd like to end with religions being different TVs, right? And there are different channels on TV, and that atheism, which you're claiming is also like restricting somebody and putting them down a tunnel, is the equivalent of turning that TV off and letting them, explore to go to one of those things, or to fill that zone with other types of philosophy or ways of thinking, and appreciating their world and understanding their world. Yeah.
But there is an unfortunate historical fact. Jesus lived a sinless life, died on a cross for forgiving his enemies, and rose from the dead. And Jesus Christ has led the charge for respecting women, respecting people of all races, because we're all created in the image of God. He has led that charge. There's nobody who's impacted this world when it comes to racial equality, gender equality, more than Jesus Christ. But let's talk about an historical fact. You put Mao Zedong, Joseph Stalin, and Adolf Hitler together, and their worldview, their philosophy of life, was perfectly justified in what they did, slaughtering millions of people. When Christians murder people, that is hypocrisy. That is wrong. It's a violation of what Jesus taught. When an atheist slaughters people, that is not a violation of their moral relativism. That is not a violation of their nihilism. And don't take it from me, read Friedrich Nietzsche, Albert Camus, Jean-Paul Sartre. It's real clear, intellectually consistent. No God, morality is relative. You can love people, you can murder them. It's all relative. You follow Jesus Christ and you're a hypocrite, you murder, you hate people, you're racist, you're a flaming phony. Flat out. That's all I'm saying.
No, I would agree with that.
So if morality is not objective, you have wiped out the basis of critiquing Stalin, Hitler, because it's all relative. So you take your little cultural prejudices and get out. Mao Zedong was Chinese. Different culture. You have no business telling him from your culture, Mao Zedong, that was wrong what you did. You're a different culture from Adolf Hitler. You have no basis for telling a Nazi German slaughtering Jews in Dachau and Auschwitz is wrong.
Morality is not objective, but it can be reasoned and logically came to through like philosophy, like John Rawls' and theory of justice.
You bet.
And there are people that yes, I can critique those people.
The only problem is Stalin had his reasons, Hitler had his reasons. And I'm an arrogant twit if I say my reasoning is right and your reasoning is wrong. What you have is you hold on to truth. And you say, with my mind, I'm getting in touch with truth, Hitler. I'm getting in touch with truth, Mao Zedong. If you're a consistent atheist, you know truth does not exist. Truth is just something you perceive with your own bias, with your own cultural prejudice. Come on, man, what's ethnocentrism? Certainly you guys are being taught about the evils of ethnocentrism here at the University of Oregon. It's thinking that your culture is right and other cultures are wrong. Where on earth do you get off critiquing other cultures? It's all relative, man. And if one culture wants to say slaughtering Jews is good, that's their culture. And if Mao Zedong, with his culture, wants to say slaughtering people is good, for him it's good. But if I'm a follower of Christ and I say slaughtering Jews is good, I'm a hypocrite because I'm contradicting Jesus Christ. I'm contradicting the good character of God. And that's why I respect Nietzsche, Camus, and Sartre, because they had the honesty to take their atheism seriously, and they said, it's all a cosmic crapshoot. You define it your way, I define it my way. I'm not right, you're not wrong. You're not right, I'm not wrong. It's all relative, man. You can't live that out, and I'm glad you don't, sir. You know very well that you as an atheist have a conscience that tells you, no, 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 no. Although I might say with the top of my head, morality is relative, don't you go around slaughtering Jews, Hitler, because that's really objectively wrong. But you're an intellectual hypocrite. You're living your life as if, oh no, baby, you gas Jews, that ain't relatively wrong, that is absolutely wrong.
Are there rules to like objective rules created by somebody else? No, but humans, it is objectively wrong if I want people to not kill me to go kill people, right? That's the golden rule. The golden rule is a great example of logic being able to work its way and for something to be objective.
Oh,
right?
I disagree totally. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. Makes some sense. You stick the knife in my back, I scratch your back and help you? That's stupid. That's what Jesus taught. Jesus taught not just you scratch my back and then, baby, tit for tat, I'll scratch your back. You help me and then I got a reason to help you. Jesus said, the guy who sticks the knife in your back, you go out and help him. You love your enemy. That, sir, is stupid. It is illogical if we live in a dog-eat-dog world. But if there is a God who is love at the center of the cosmos, then it's stupid not to love your enemy. Because your enemy is still a human being created in the image of God. And that's what my lesbian friends at Texas State couldn't understand. When they said to me, Cliff, you said you got racist friends? You're an idiot. You have friends who are racist? And I said, yes, ma'am. But they're still human beings created in the image of God. And they still have value. I deplore their racism, but I love them and respect them as human beings created in the image of God.
Violence is a cycle, and if we keep on breaking it and breaking it and breaking it, at some point we have to find within ourselves to say, continuing this cycle of violence only leads to more violence, and we need to stop it, right? I mean, you look at the historical things of Ireland and like any world conflict, right? To some extent, you have to say, all right, we're going to be the bigger person and not do this in order to end the cycle of violence for all human good.
No, buddy, I appreciate your altruism.
Right. And
we're going to be bigger people.
If somebody stabs me and I stab him back, then I get stabbed back again, right? Like,
I could give a rip about the cycle.
So
I care about my family. You stick him or you stick me, I'm coming after you, bud, to teach you don't do that ever again. If you do, I'm going to knife you.
A contradiction to what you just said Jesus wants you to do.
Thank you. I'm jumping into your worldview. And if your worldview is morality is relative, I am not going to love my enemy. I'm not going to love the guy who sticks in with a knife. If morality is relative and it's all a crapshoot, you stick him with a knife, I'm coming after you, bud.
Okay.
Because you better not stick him again.
Why? I don't believe that, but okay.
And you have no basis for it. I asked you why, and you have no basis.
Well, no, you should be.
And don't take it from me. Take it from Nietzsche, Camus, Sartre. Don't take it from me. Okay. Take it from all the nihilists. It's exactly what they pointed out. Camus begins the book, L'étranger, the stranger, with the words of a young teenage boy who says, yesterday mother died. Or was it today? Who gives a rip when mom died? Life is absurd. Death ends the absurdity that birth began. That's consistent atheism. That's Albert Camus. He was brilliant. But you can't live it out.
And just to let you know, from that evolutionary morality perspective, you should be a fascist. You should be a fascist because from the evolutionary perspective, strong eat the weak, eventually you start to group up in a clan, And in order to survive, you stick with your clan. You just said something where everybody notices violence. And so cross-culturally, everybody should get together and say, hey, we got to figure out how to heal this violence. There's not a shred of evidence for that from moral theory. From an evolutionary perspective, it's the strong eat the weak. So you should always try and preserve your gene pool and just yours alone with your group. So I'm just trying to completely debunk everything you said about moral theory right there. Because morality that we get from God is not just this guy in the sky who's somehow writing all the rules. No, it's a moral transcendent source. There's a law above the law. That's why we can seek after peace and reconciliation and fight against racism. Because it's not about the law that comes just from culture.
Just
there's a
read
law
the
above
letter
the
from
law.
the Birmingham jail. The white ministers of Birmingham, Alabama were telling, shut up, black boy. Shut up, Dr. Martin Luther King. The great state of Alabama has decreed that segregation is good. And from his prison cell, Dr. Martin Luther King writes, guess what, guys? There's a law above the law of the great state of Alabama, and according to that law, segregation and racism are wrong. Bravo, Dr. Martin Luther King. That is exactly right. Intellectually consistent. There's a law above the law of the great state of Alabama. No king. If there's no God, there's no law above the law of the state you live in. But King said, garbage. King said, you've got a conscience and you understand that there is a law above the law of the state of Alabama. And according to that law, segregation is evil.
From your perspective, that makes sense.
No. From your perspective, does that make sense or not?
I mean, I think that there are, I mean, as Martin Luther King said, that there's a moral imperative to not follow unjust laws, right? And I do not believe, though, that God is the only way to find a theory of justice. Like I just said, John Rawls and plenty of others, political and social theorists have come up with ways with the absence of God.
All right, but what are they? You talked about how Christians are closed-off thinkers and that atheists are wide open in their thinking and their truth-seeking. You keep dropping John Rawls. Now I want to hear, what is his perspective and how do we get to this place of justice without God?
His view is that he talks a lot about the veiled ignorance of you not knowing where you will be in a certain situation, right? Like if I'm gonna break a cookie in two, right? We're gonna split a cookie and I break it in two, and I break it, but you choose a piece, right? It would be foolish of me to break one piece big and one piece small, right? Those are the types of logical things that you can just come to without God.
Okay.
That can then build a society of what we want.
Yep. No, I know. Yeah, I know.
If, right, the society in Martin Luther King today was like, all right, there's going to be one group that has all access to everything, and there's going to be one group that has no access to anything, right? The whites and the blacks, right? That would not, that does not make sense logically.
You get there with reason. You get there with reason. Okay. I want you to read the Shuntong Compound. A secularist from Harvard was in the Shuntong Compound, and he said, in this prisoner of war camp, we are going to be reasoned based off of Rawls. We are going to be able to reason ourselves to the point of saying, hey, your bunk over here only has 2 beds. We over here have 3, and there's more prisoners coming in. So why don't we share our portions, our rations with you, maybe even give you a bed, because we're rational human beings, where we're just going to say morally and ethically, we should be equal. Okay, this Harvard atheist, I love that he writes, another book would be Tim Keller's Making Sense of God. He writes in there, and he talks about how I thought by Rawls' perspective, we could be reasonable human beings and say, hey, break off half that cookie for you, and I'll keep half. Doesn't that make sense? But he says as soon as the pressure picks up, it's impossible to live out that moral theory. Impossible. But Jesus Christ steps in, and he says, no, morally, we are all created in God's image. We are all equal. Jesus Christ says, stick your neck out on the line for the other. Don't save your own skin. Love the other. That's why there was a man in that camp named Eric Liddell, who was an Olympian, who lived out the Christian moral ethic because he was devoted to Christ. And he was the only one in that camp, this secularist talks about, who has joy, happiness, and peace. And he was the only one sacrificing for others, not because of reason, sharing half a cookie with another half a cookie. You and I get both half cookies. No, he said that would not work. And sure enough, it didn't work. It never does. So you need to understand, why do you live for things like human rights? You seem like a compassionate guy, loving guy. Why? Why are you like that? And it's because you're swimming in the pond of Judeo-Christian values set by Jesus Christ.
But Christianity does this all the times of like, yes, there are good things that you draw from it, and I agree with all the things you just said, but then you say this is the only way that we can come to these things, and it's like
No, that's not what we said.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
You've totally misunderstood the past half hour. Never once did he say, never once did I say, if you're an atheist, you can't understand justice. What I am saying is, all of my please listen, all of my atheist friends understand justice. All of my atheist friends are very good people. They do a lot of good. But the problem is, they have wiped out the foundation of goodness, the foundation of justice. Because when you wipe out God, you're wiping out the mind prior to the human mind, who creates and defines justice, who creates people with innate value, which means you're just floating through the air on this stuff. As Stuart said, you're living off the fumes of the Judeo-Christian worldview, because your worldview says there is no God. Now, if there is no God, why is justice not a real value? Because this thing and that column have no understanding of justice, right and wrong. It takes a mind, a thinking mind, to understand justice, love, forgiveness. If there is no God, there is no mind prior to the human mind, which means it's obviously the human mind that creates justice, love, whatever. But if you're going to be consistent and there is no God, you're going to have to say, so good and evil and injustice are just the creation of the human mind. So that mind has one definition, that one mind has another definition, that mind has another definition. This guy says, I'm more rational than you are, so my definition is correct. You say, I'm a more heartfelt, loving guy, so my definition is correct. And he says, I'm more into punish the wicked, and my definition is correct. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong, because it's just the creation of the human mind. So if he's got his definition, who am I to tell him he's wrong? I'm just another human being. And what's really sick is if I say, oh no, my culture's right and your culture's wrong. Baloney. That's arrogance. So you see why Jesus Christ makes so much sense, because he is the foundation, God is the foundation of justice, goodness, love, compassion. These are real values. They're not made up by the Republicans. They're not made up by the Democrats. They're not made up by the Americans. They're not made up by the Nazis. They're made up by God, and he's given us consciences and rational minds that we can understand. And every one of my atheist friends, I'm going to say it so you don't misquote me, please,